we are going to switch the conversation to be talk about starting your 2022 dominance. Chloe, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. We can hear you
You can
loud and
hear
clear.
me. Woo!
That's a great start. Chloe, thank you so much for taking the time to come in on and sharing with us today.
Thanks for having me. This is something that's super near and dear to my heart. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Nice. A passionate planner. I love it.
Yes, I was fortunate enough to grow up in a family where goals were not optional. So we learned at a very young age to kind of track our successes and make plans for the future. So I do love this stuff. So yeah.
So why now? So I approached Chloe and said, Chloe, listen, what's top of mind for you? What's happening out there? And this is immediately what you came up with. Why now? Why? What made it something that is important for our realtors to think about?
Well, for one, it's been a crazy year. So I think we need to take a little bit of time to reflect on that and see, what happened in everyone's businesses and kind of assess on how they can capture that again moving forward or what they might want to do different for next year. But also, I hate when people leave this to January. You're starting the year January 1st. You want to be ready to go. You don't want to start planning for the year when the year is already happening. So we're hopefully going to, see some little bit of slowdown here where people can take a breath and think about what just happened and set themselves up for success for next year.
Totally. Awesome.
Yeah.
And when we were talking, you said 3 steps and you've narrowed it down. I love anytime you can simplify things to a 3-step plan. So why don't you give us the 3 steps and then let's go through each one with all the points. So high level, What are the 3 steps?
Step 1 is to be retrospective and review what happened this year. So we can talk about that, but in simplicity's sake, what happened this year and kind of just thinking about it in a clear way. Step 2 is going to be making a plan for next year based on how you want it to be different than this year. And step 3 is just setting up your systems and processes so that everything can go how you want it to go.
Perfect. Well, let's start step 1, reviewing 2021. The year's not over, but we have a pretty good idea of how it's going to finish up, I would say, by now with people's businesses. So what should people be doing?
Okay, so one of the first things that I always did, and I always recommend to my agents that you guys do, is sit down and literally it can be on a piece of paper or a spreadsheet, or it doesn't have to be very techy, but just sit down and look at where your transactions came from this year. So literally write down client Joe Smith and where the origin of that lead came from, and really look at look for themes in your business. Where did you find success? Did you do 20 open houses and get 0 clients from it? Or did you do 20 open houses and get 15 clients from it? So just really spending some time in analyzing where your successes were from your transactions from 2021.
Perfect.
Make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
And then the other part of that in the, analyzing your business thing is, where did you spend the time? So not only where did your transactions come from, but also what was your rate of success with the things that you actually implemented? So hopefully, and no shame if you didn't do this, because you can always improve for next year, but hopefully you set some goals and you had a marketing plan this year. Obviously with COVID, things went haywire and probably nothing went to plan, but sit down and think about how much time did I put into open houses, how much time did I put into real estate reviews, into online marketing, into Facebook advertising, whatever it is, and just really think about where your time was most efficiently spent, time and money, because obviously people have different business models. Some of you are spending money on things and some of you are spending time on things, or maybe you have a combination of both. But at the end of the day, some things are going to be more fruitful than other things. And that might not be the same between 2 agents. That's the other part of this, is that, totally. We could do a panel of 5 top producers and ask them where their successes are coming from. And probably all 5 of them would have different answers. So at the end of the day, it's really about what works for you in your business, and really just taking the time to figure out what it is that's working.
I love that, because it becomes very clear. We're going to talk about some honesty stuff here, about being honest with yourself too. But that right there is sort of like, it's on the paper. Did it work or didn't it work? And you might absolutely be married to something that you're doing right now, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like, just you got to change something. Like, you're just beating the dead horse, or trying to do the same things over and over and over again. There's some things that people love. I always say, I have this saying that it's like, the world doesn't care if you're happy. It only cares if you're competent. You might be happy trying to do something you're trying to do, of just like build your social media following. And it might feel really good to go out there and post up your listings and other stuff you're trying to do. But if you're not getting any business from it, you need to change course, my friend, because you're going to be broke. So whatever you're doing right now, if you're not getting the results, it's telling. It's like, you got to be honest with yourself and change course.
Totally. I 100% agree. And you kind of touched on my next point, which is the honesty part of things. I think a lot of people got lucky this year, and that's okay. It's totally okay that a lot of people got lucky in this market. It's okay if you didn't get lucky too, but it is a really important thing to sit back and think, okay, what did I do to generate this business? And how do you replicate it next year? Or did you maybe just get lucky? And if that's the case, and you really need to sit down and think about, okay, what am I going to do to keep this ball rolling? Because it's really nice when you have a really great year, but if you don't know where it came from and you don't know how you got it, it's going to be really tough to do it another time.
Yeah. Yeah. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, a market like this can hide a lot of flaws in people's marketing plans. It's like, I was just so busy, and my phone kept ringing, and people that I had known, but it's like, you don't have any repeatable systems. You don't have any or repeatable marketing strategies, and you did get lucky. And so I was, you just got to make sure that your success isn't indicative of whether or not you still have a good business model. It's, you got to separate the two.
Well, and you have a point here that talks about creating sustainable and repeatable systems that we had talked about. So that's something we're going to, I think, bring up again when we talk about systems. But, are the things that you were doing that generated the business something that you can continue to do? And is it scalable? And what does that look like for your future?
Yeah. If you were to say, how did you create that level of business? Were you deliberate about it? And Ninja says all the time, it's, they say, from the art of war, Sun Tzu, it's like, it doesn't take a keen eye to see the lightning, and it doesn't take a keen ear to hear the thunder. And this was a thunderclap market. We had the thunder, and everyone's like, oh, I'm doing so great, I'm killing it out there. It's like, yeah, everybody is. Like, a high tide raises all ships. It's when the market turns that you need to have the systems in place and things like that. Because I said, this can hide a lot of flaws right now. So you need to make sure that if it wasn't deliberate activities that generated today's business, you should have a sense of urgency. Maybe your heart rate should increase a little bit, and get a bit nervous about what next year might bring, and use that as motivation to implement.
Yeah, totally. I think, is it Ninja also that says you don't want to be an agent by accident?
Yeah.
Is that Ninja? Yeah.
Yeah. You want to be an on-purpose realtor, not a by accident.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that really comes into play for this as well, especially from this last year. And again, like, we're all really happy that this year was as good as it was. And hopefully that continues. But the reality is that at some point things will normalize. Especially to the new agents that came in the last year and a half or so into this really hyped up market. It's so vital that, they realize that, this isn't going to be forever. And that effort that goes into your business, working on your business, not always in your business, is going to be so important coming into the next couple of years. Okay.
Totally.
Do we want to move on to step 2? Okay.
Step 2. Yeah.
Planning. So we talked about this already, but don't wait until January to do this. January 1st is the beginning of the new year, when you should start implementing these things. In fact, why wait until then to implement them? So if you make a plan and you already know what you want to do, just start it now. Don't wait until January. So now is the time. Time is of the essence. Okay. So part of this is about writing goals. So if you're not used to writing goals down, I'd suggest reading a couple books about goal setting, or listening to some podcasts, or, however you usually digest your information. But at the end of the day, goals should be written and they should be simple. Your goal might be a huge goal, but at the end of the day, you need to break it down so that it's something that is digestible for you to do on a daily basis, so it doesn't feel overwhelming. So, for example, if you have a goal of doing 25 deals next year, let's just pick a number out of the air. Okay, so you want to do 25 goals next year. What does that mean on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, on a daily basis? So how do you break that down to, okay, so you want to do 2 point something transactions per month. And how are you going to get that? So that's going to come into your marketing plan and setting yourself up for success and figuring out, okay, going back to last year, what worked? What do I want to move forward into this year? Where did I get those transactions? And really implementing what that looks like on a daily basis. So for example, if you got 50% of your transactions last year from real estate reviews, well, that's probably a pretty good thing to move into the next year with you, and breaking that down into how many of these things do I need to do per week, so that it's broken down into a manageable task. If that makes sense.
And actionable tasks. It's like, you can just see exactly as it looks. I love that concept, because you would actually be able to say, every real estate review that I did, or every open house that I sat, or every marketing campaign I sent, you just start slashing them off. Like, I need to send, over the course of the year, I need to do 150 of these or 100 of these. And you're just checking them off. And it's like, I know I will get my results if I just implement this. And realtors think too much. Like they spend way too much time over analyzing what they think they should be doing, when if you just laid out the plan and then worked your plan, you're probably going to be okay. And it's important to obviously review it and adapt it and change it. But that's awesome. And what you're talking about is something that you can just do on a blank sheet of paper. Just take a piece of paper out of your printer and start, jotting down your goals, and then start breaking down your activities based off of what worked the previous year, and maybe add in a couple of things you want to experiment with, but make sure that you are moving over the things that worked really well.
Exactly. And depending on your personality, there's different ways that you can keep yourself accountable. I'm really a to-do list person. Lindsay knows that. I literally I have this beside me all the time. I haven't filled mine out for today yet because we're doing this, but I have a daily to-do list that I know that I don't get to go home until I finish this. And like this one I like because it breaks it down into ASAP, soon, and like the lofty goals of like when I happen to have time. But the nice thing about having it in paper is that, like, I obviously sit at my desk every day, so I know that this is beside me every day, and it's manageable in my daily habits, and I can create those habits. And that's the other part of this is I just listened to this podcast. I think I mentioned it to you earlier. It was a podcast where, I don't even know, some guy was interviewing the author of Atomic Habits, which I have not read yet, but I have bought it. But at the end of the day, all goals are habits that you create every day to make it all achievable. And it doesn't feel hard then, because you're just, even if it's 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day or whatever it is, 2 real estate reviews a week, it creates this habit in your daily world where when you get sucked into the whirlwind of everyday life, or the working in the business, where you get, you have transactions on the go, you have clients that are being demanding, whatever it is. If you have the habits that are in place and you start your day doing the things that you need to do before you get the whirlwind in place, it really helps you stay on track. And the thing that I learned most about in that little podcast that I listened to was don't ever miss 2 days.
Nice.
So,
yeah.
I totally did this weekend, because I've been working on my exercise habits, and I took 2 days off this week, which means I have to get back at it today or I'm just doomed. So
what happened when you took 2 days off, Chloe?
Oh, it's awful. I feel like my whole world is, and I lost to you. Yeah, we can.
Chloe and I
will
have
say
our Apple Watch fitness competition on, but I feel like I feel a lot better because Chloe has beaten me in all the ones that we've done so far. So, but she's upset about this, but I'm like, I'm still, 50% less wins than she has. So, or half the wins she has. Anyways.
I don't like losing, but
it's fun. I'll just speak to that for a second here. Ninja, if anyone's on the Ninja list, I forget what they call the Ninja Insider stuff, but they just sent out an email on never break the chain. And I haven't actually read the headline, but I know the concept. And they talked about Jerry Seinfeld has spent every single day taking time to write jokes every single day. And he said, I'll never miss a day. And he's talked about never breaking the chain. So it's absolutely something that is a great concept of that, never miss a day or two or whatever happens to be. And even with exercise, one of the things that I find is if you are taking a day off, still go to the gym or still go to your basement, wherever you happen to have your stuff, and just stretch. It's like, you don't need to do it, but you've actually had it where you've inserted that time with some sort of recovery. It's like, you're not breaking the chain. And it's super powerful. So, yeah.
The other thing I'll say about this, and I know that we're running long here, so I'll be quick, is that if you need an accountability partner, find one. There are 700 and something of us at this company. There is another person who probably wants an accountability partner also. Rely on each other. I know that I need that in my business, in my life. And it literally works wonders for me because I will guilt myself in making sure that I'm remaining accountable to the other person before I do that for myself. So if you're that type of person, find someone to be accountable to. Spend, a 15 minutes a week catching up and holding each other accountable.
Yeah.
I think it's hugely important.
Love it.
Okay.
Love it. All right. Step 3.
Setting up your systems and processes. So this kind of ties into both 1 and 2 because this should really be an ongoing thing. But when we're in the whirlwind like we were this year, it's really hard to take a step back and really assess the situation as far as, what systems do you have in place, what's working, what's not working. So the first one that I always go to is your database. So you need this is a non-negotiable in real estate. You need a database. Whether there's 5 people in it to begin with, or 500 people or 5,000 people is not the relevant piece to this. You need the system in place so that you can grow. It's just, I personally believe that you can't operate without one. What do you think?
Okay. You shouldn't. And lots of people do. And they say, I've never had a database. And I made 160,000. You have a database in your head. And you might have a database in your phone that you're using, but the reason you're stopping at 160 or 150 and you're never going to get to 300 is because you don't know where to find your clients again. You can't set up repeatable systems. You can't scale, like all these things. It's like you got to be able to find. Real estate's only 2 things: make a list of people, follow up with something that's valuable to them. That's it. But if you don't have that list, then you're done. And yes, Facebook has a list and Instagram have a list of your followers and you got to follow up with value. But that database piece, your past clients. I know a lot of these internet lead gen people who get all these internet leads, but they have no referral. They have no repeat and referral business. So they keep spending money, $800 per transaction in generating leads, or $1,200 per transaction landed client. And that's so expensive because these people never come back. And you run a thin margin business. It's not easy and it's not good. So,
well, and it's so much easier to work with people who already know, like, and trust you or have referred you than to just keep finding new clients. And yes, Facebook has kind of a built-in friend list or whatever, but it doesn't make your life easier because it's not helping you with your systems. All it is just a storage place for people. More or less. It's not actually helping you with your system. So I'm just a huge believer in having a database. Oh, 1 second.
Well, and just to add to my point, just to clarify my point, I think lead gen is amazing. Online lead gen is amazing, but now you also need the database to put them into, because then you get the lead gen and the repeat referral. So anyways, that's that.
It just grows a stronger business.
Totally.
Yeah. So find a CRM of some variety. There's hundreds of them out there. We get prospects for free, literally through the board. So pick one and start using it. And what I suggest is this time of year is the best time of year to start fiddling around with those, because we should, in theory, have a bit of a lull, hopefully a little bit of one where you can just take a step back and think about these things and find a system that you like and that you're actually going to use. Because if you don't use it, it's like you don't have it. So you need something that you enjoy using. The other thing that I like people to sit back and think about is, what did they find painful this year? Like, what parts of their business did they not enjoy? And how can they make it better for themselves? Because at the end of the day, if you don't like what you're doing, you're not going to do it well. So how can you make it better? So if, I don't know, like, let's say you don't like writing up the blurbs on MLS. I hated writing those. That was definitely one of my least favorite things to do.
Yeah, you and I both.
So how do you outsource that? And how do you find someone that might be able to do it better for not a lot of money, that so that you can kind of free up your mental space? As soon as you're doing a bunch of things that you don't enjoy, it makes it hard to enjoy your day. And that kind of just, cascades to clients and all that kind of stuff. So what are the things that you didn't enjoy doing, and how can you maybe replace them easily for your business and for your own mental space? I'm a huge believer in balance and like making sure that you're also happy in life, and you should be enjoying your everyday. So how do you make it more enjoyable?
Well, and even if you can't outsource it, I mean, you could at least look, like, let's say your CMA is just a crapshoot, in like terms of trying to pull the properties, the comparables, and the way that you're doing it is just a nightmare. Well, sit down and actually say, maybe you talk to 2 or 3 other realtors, see what they're up to. But then just say, okay, what can I do to make this a little bit easier on myself? And you just take some time to pre-plan it. And if you can't outsource it, at least you can improve it by 10%. And that 10% compounds over a long time, even in terms of your happiness. Like, it's a big deal.
Totally. And a lot of the time people don't like things because they don't feel comfortable with it. And like a CMA is a really good example of that. It's probably not a painful process, but it's a painful experience because you don't enjoy doing it, because you probably don't feel confident in it. So if you maybe just spend a little bit more time learning that skill, it won't feel as crappy.
Perfect.
Okay. So we talked about that. The other thing that I want to mention in this section is that if there are things like that you don't necessarily like doing, or that are really huge time sucks, that's the other thing. There are other options for you. The holiday cards that we talked about, like, I don't know, that you talked about like 15 minutes ago, really good example of that. I literally spent at least 2 full days in December every year writing those cards, which is not an effective use of time at all.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have a service like this for $2.75 to outsource it. First of all, I know it's going to get done that way, because all I have to do is send in my database, which hopefully you have. And if not, next year you want to be better and have it in place for next year. But now is a really good time. You have 11 days to get it in, get your database together.
Pause on that for a second, because here's the thing is that, to have a database, you want a complete database. And we're doing several things right now where it's like, hey, I want to make sure, we're, even if you haven't called everybody in a while, first thing you can say is, hey, I'm sorry I haven't kept in touch, but we're doing a bunch of stuff throughout the year. We have contests, everything else. We're doing some stuff for family, with hot chocolate and story time and things like that. And I don't know if I have your correct address or email address in my system. Do you mind if I get those updated? And you're not saying, I want your email address so I can send you a newsletter and, harass you to buy and sell, or your address to send you a bunch of market stats. You're just saying, we got a bunch of cool things we're doing where you can win some prizes. We do a bunch of charity stuff, whatever it happens to be. I don't know if I have your correct contact information. Let me get that up to date. And now with 11 days, you can look and say, I have 200 people in my database. Right now, I'm going to start hitting the phones a little bit and get my database up to speed, or at least the people that you don't have up to speed, use as an opportunity to connect. And I promise you, if you did that and you'd made 10 calls a day for the next, however many days, you will get at least one transaction out of it. And I bet you even more, because what's happening is that someone is going to be like, oh my gosh, so funny you called. We were just talking about, you're just talking about real estate. There's a house that's sold down the street. Can you please, get us that information for you? I promise you make those phone calls, you will do a transaction, at least one. And that's just because somebody in your database is ready, willing, and able today. You may not have been top of mind. And if you haven't been in touch, I know we get that guilty feeling like, oh, I should have, but now it's awkward because I hadn't. Then it's apologize. Just be like, I should have done a better job of keeping in touch. Yeah. And
just,
go at
just
it.
Say it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just acknowledge it. So love that. Love that.
The other piece to that is, I would have to spend at least a day every year in December updating everything from just the clients that I sold houses to in that year. I didn't go back into my database and update it at the end of the transaction. So I had to do it all at the end of the day before I wanted to send out these holiday card letters, and everything just starts piling on top of each other too. So, but what that was a process issue, because I didn't have update database on my checklist, on my whatever deal checklist that I had. So I never updated the database at the end, which literally would have taken me 30 seconds probably at the end of a transaction to put in the new address, but it wasn't on my checklist. So that was a pain point for me that I needed to address my process on how I dealt with that. So yeah, just think about those things so that you're set up properly for the next year. Cause hopefully going to be busy next year too. So, if we have a couple of weeks here and where it's a bit slower, and nobody wants to do this over Christmas. That's the other thing, is like everyone always says, I'll do that stuff over Christmas, but over Christmas, you're hanging out with your family, you're drinking Baileys and coffee. You don't want to spend 2 weeks looking at your processes.
Totally. And that's what you said, what process needs improvement, what technology do I need to add, what's broken in my business, or what can be improved in my business, or what can I do more of, what's working well, and how can I go big on it? And how can you get that set up today for tomorrow? Chloe, thank you so much. These are all fantastic points, and hopefully everybody, it lights a bit of a fire and is a good reminder to get going on this stuff today. I know for a lot of you, it hasn't slowed down. You need to carve this out. You need to time block to get this in. Otherwise, the same challenges that you have today, you're going to have tomorrow, and you got to make sure that you do something different to change that. So Chloe, thank you again.
Thank you.
Awesome.